Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Look Forward. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host, Brad.
Jay, I feel like this week is one of the most variety-filled episodes of Look Forward that we've ever done. There's a little something for everybody in this week's episode. You got your judicial corruption, you got your Nazi sympathizing, you got your Harry Potter, you have some classic Brad ageism that we're gonna go hit on here. It's gonna be great. We're all over the place this week.
Black Lives Matter, death penalty. I mean, or not death penalty, but like jail time, and it's fun. One, interestingly enough, probably a little known story. We're gonna talk about Republicans eating their own, and it's a real doozy. It's a fun story. It just came out this evening. All right, so let's get right into it. Clarence Thomas found to have taken gifts from Billionaire. Right-wing donor. I don't know if you could tell he's a billionaire. His name is Harlan Crow.
As I remarked to you before the show, it literally sounds like a Succession character.
Yeah, he quite literally does. So that's and not a good one either. One you'd hate.
Yeah.
Oh, in fairness, you hate all the characters, but that's the point. So our boy Clarence Thomas totally busted, right? Because he decided that over the last number of years, like a lot, like 15 years, I think.
25.
25.
According to him, he's been friends with the Crows, which sounds racist, for the past 25 years. And he thought that would be like some sort of like vindicating statement.
Yeah, they're my buddies.
Yeah, and people were like, you do realize you've been a Supreme Court justice for 30 years, right? Like, it's not like you knew this dude while you were on the come up. Like you met him after you were in the highest seat of power that you could possibly attain in this country.
Right. And we'll talk about Harlan Crow in a second because yikes. But just a couple points in the article. How they found out about this was the investigation, like ProPublica is the one who busted this thing wide open.
Which,
their
by
analysis,
the way,
go ahead.
Before we get into the analysis, again, I feel like we said this before. Republicans, or anyone, but especially Republicans right now, continue to show your ass in public constantly, and you're going to give people a reason to dig into your shit. Like, I'm pretty sure if Clarence Thomas wasn't a raging piece of shit, that ProPublica would not have been like, oh, we should probably look into Clarence Thomas. But because Clarence Thomas comes out here and makes like some crazy batshit rulings on Supreme Court cases and writes insane opinions, they're just like, I wonder if we should look at where Clarence Thomas's money is coming from.
Yep, every time. And look, that is a lesson that I don't see them learning anytime soon because they can't keep their mouth shut. No. Right? But look, by all means, keep going. Like, it's just great. It's highly entertaining. So the ProPublica analysis basically got this information because of Thomas's financial disclosure forms and other related documents. So Thomas failed to disclose 12 trips on private jets and luxury accommodations, some of which were sponsored by prominent conservative figures. One notable trip was the 2021 hunting excursion in Texas, paid for by Harlan Crow. Thomas has received several expensive gifts, such as a $15,000 Rolex watch, which, again, he did not disclose on his financial form. So, like, shit like that, he takes, like, yearly trips on Crow's yacht, like his like crazy big yacht around the world. There's pictures of him and Jeannie Thomas and Harlan Crow and his wife, like on trips to like Indonesia and stuff like that. He has taken Crow's like super fancy Bombardier Global 5000 jet. I've never heard of that because I'm poor. So yeah, he's been doing all this. He even went to, gotta say, this sentence feels a little weird to me. He has gone with Crow to Bohemian Grove, the exclusive California all-male retreat.
Yeah.
Sounds like an all-male review. So that's what it sounds like. But God bless. And he's also been to Crow's sprawling ranch in East Texas, of course. Thomas typically spends about a week every summer at Crow's private resort in the Adirondacks as well.
Yes.
So yeah,
which we'll talk about. Which we'll talk about that resort in a little bit here. So Clarence Thomas's excuse was, "Oh, I didn't know I had to disclose this stuff." To which I say, "Really?"
Yeah, that he pulled a Wesley Snipes. I didn't know that I had to pay taxes. Like, come on, Wesley, don't do that. Like, you knew that.
And I love how, both him and Harlan Crow were quick to come out and be like, "Oh, we're just good friends." Like, I would never attempt to use my largesse to influence my friends' opinions on cases that he rules, and I've never had business before the court. That Clarence Thomas is sitting on it. Meanwhile, there's a painting that someone that they commissioned that sits in Harlan Crow's resort house of him and Clarence Thomas and Leonard Leo, the dude that basically fucking created the Federalist Society, and two notable Republican judges, but one of which was I believe the Trump administration's counsel in OMB, all sitting around a campfire, smoking cigars, chatting, I'm sure, about nothing politics related. I'd have to imagine. So,
look,
it's just bro, that, this is literally immortalized on a canvas of you with these fucking dudes.
Yeah. I call this painting corruption. It's super honest. These are judges I've bought before. Isn't that cool? I own them. I don't think there's anything more irritating to me than the idea of Clarence Thomas holding himself in such high regard.
Mm-hmm.
Clarence Thomas is easily one of the worst Supreme Court justices we've ever had, by far. And I mean that, not that I think he's not intelligent or anything like that, but that he got in, right? And look, the method by which he got in, and I'll talk about that in a second for folks who don't know, the method by which he basically nullified any Democratic opposition to him was nothing short of brilliant. It was a shithead move. I don't want you to think that I think it was brilliant as in I agreed with it. I just thought it was a brilliant move. He used the one thing against America that a black person can use, and in his position, it worked perfectly, right? Mm-hmm. But he then got in and almost never said anything the entire time he's been in Supreme Court. Not until after Scalia died, I believe, had he said anything on the record in 12 years. He doesn't speak up, which means he's not asking questions, which means he already has his mind made up, which is not the sign of a person who is willing to listen, right? Your job is to be a judge and to ask questions and to wonder why X is X and Y is Y and why one side's arguing one thing and one side's arguing another. You don't just listen and take everything at face value and then rule. That's terrible judgment. And I know what people are thinking. Well, judges normally don't ask questions. It's the lawyers. Well, that's not exactly how the Supreme Court works.
Not at all how the Supreme Court works.
Not at all.
Right. That's literally all it is. It's literally each side presents their case, and then after they're done presenting their case, the judges are just let me scrutinize this case. Let me pick apart this
totally
argument. It is like you said, a wildly different sort of thing because they're an appeals court ultimately. At the end of the day, that's pretty much what they are. That's what appeals courts do. They're much more involved and because they're talking about, based on rulings that have already happened. No one gets to go to the Supreme Court first. That's not how that works.
Somebody tell Donald Trump that.
Well, now one of the things that, and just to give you the kind of ridiculous person that Clarence Thomas is, one of the things that came up during this investigation is there's a clip of this, I guess, documentary on him, I guess, which by the way, underwritten by Harlan Crow, in case you were wondering about that.
Wait, what?
Yes, the documentary about Clarence Thomas is basically Harlan Crow's producing it. He's underwriting the cost to produce this documentary.
Oh, he owns him full board.
Yeah,
full board.
But awesome. in this documentary, there's a voiceover of Clarence Thomas talking about how he's a root of the earth type of American. Like, he likes to see the real people in the Midwest. And he says one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my entire life. I don't like going to like the beaches and the coast and things like that. I prefer the Walmart parking lot to the beaches or something along those lines.
Wait,
I'm not exaggerating, by the way. This
Clarence
is literally
Thomas
something that he
said
says.
That?
Yes, Clarence Thomas says this in this documentary that he's voicing.
All right, knock it off, knock it off.
Talking about himself. Yeah,
knock it off. The Walmart parking lot. You haven't been to a Walmart in 40 years. Stop lying.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he's taking trips on private jets to Indonesia and hanging out on yachts and going to all male treats at the Bohemian Grove as you do.
Yeah, as the folks who shop at Walmart do. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, why do you have to pretend to be a regular Joe? You're not. Look, just as a side note, this is one of the great issues, like one of the great divides between the left and the right. The right, we're hardworking Americans, blah, 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 right? Like, their politicians say this shit. Liberals go, yeah, I like going to Trader Joe's, man. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I like getting a coffee. And they're like, you fucking elitist assholes. I'm like, I'm an elitist asshole? That guy's on super yachts and hanging out on a Bombardier 5000 jet I've never heard of. But, like, that guy can say that. And conservatives go, yeah, no, that makes sense.
Well, it's like I said, it's the great trick that they pull, because they sit there and like, I'm one of you. And like, if you just take one step back and just kind of look at the full picture, anyone in middle America should look at most conservative politicians and be like, no, you're not. Like, not even a little bit.
Dude, not even a little bit. Like, I will never forget, and I will never stop telling this story to people who don't know. And I have to assume that we've had new listeners since I told this story years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When Fred Thompson, who used to be on, what was it? What is it? Law and Order? Yeah, there's like 1,000 Law and Orders, right? Fred Thompson used to be an actor, but he was also in the Senate at one point, right? He ran for president in 2008 race, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. He got fucking destroyed, right? But he ran in 2008. And his whole thing is he would go to these little towns in America, in the Midwest, and he'd drive his like old red pickup truck through town and be like, hey, everybody, it's Fred Thompson. I was on TV, but I'm a regular Joe riding this red truck right through town, just like you, heading to the local Pick and Save or Walmart or whatever, right? Oh, he's going to the Piggly Wiggly. He's just like us, right? Turns out, shocking news, Fred Thompson, Hollywood actor Fred Thompson, how anyone forgets this is amazing. His team would fly in and they would pull that fucking red truck. They would tow it behind on a flatbed, and then they would park it just outside of the town limits, and then he would drive it in and pretend he drove it from the last town, and then the second they got out of town, they throw that bitch right back on a flatbed, and he'd get right back into his jet and fly away. And people were like, yeah, no, this guy's just like us. They're not like you. Look, I'm not like you either, but at least I'm honest. Joe Biden isn't like you either. Obama's not like you either, but they're honest. At least they're honest. You can say, oh, well, and they're not billionaires or anything, but they live more of a like, quote unquote, coastal elite lifestyle, right? Like they eat vegetables and shit. I know that's not really a thing in the Midwest, but like they're at least honest about who they are. So you can go, all right, well, like that guy's not doing all the things I'm doing. And so that's maybe a difference, but at least that guy's being honest. Fred Thompson's not being honest. He's a multimillionaire. Like, yeah. He's lying to you, and he's telling you that he's just a regular Joe like you. I will never understand that. I would never understand buying into that shit. So the things I don't also understand. Having a signed copy of Mein Kampf is what Harlan Crow has. Holy shit. Brad, you wanted to talk about what are the requirements, because he's saying he's not a Nazi. Other people online who are like journalists are also saying he's not a Nazi. What can you give some qualifiers for being a Nazi? Do you have any?
Sure. Yeah, I feel like if you feel it necessary to seek out and purchase and own a lot of like obscure Nazi memorabilia, I feel like you might be a Nazi. It's one thing to be like,
like a signed copy.
Yeah, I feel like if you're really curious to read Mein Kampf, like you could just get a copy of Mein Kampf. You don't necessarily need like a Hitler signed copy of Mein Kampf.
That is
and I also feel like that maybe you don't need like the matching like Nazi napkin set with like the fucking Nazi emblem on it. Like I feel like that's kind of unnecessary. Yeah, I feel like you could I feel like if you want to learn about Nazi history, you can pick up a history book and that's fine, because like I'm kind of interested, especially in the time, the life and times that we live in now with the Republican Party the way they are. I'm like, I too have wondered, man, how did Germany fall under the spell of this fucking charlatan? And how did this fucking political party like build this iron grip of power in this country for such a long sustained period of time? And regular German people were just like, kind of going along with it, because I feel like that would be useful information to have now. Right. But I'm not going to go, be like, what, I'd really like the answer to this question. So I think the right thing for me to do is to buy like some Nazi posters to hang in my house. Like I feel like there's other things you can do.
Really get to really get a sense of it all. I do find it, I find it interesting that there were arguments online like, he's not a Nazi. He also has a statue in his garden of Joseph Stalin.
Which, by the way,
you're right. Joseph Stalin, not Nazi. Joseph Stalin, horrendous human being.
Yes, literally.
What are you arguing?
He is literally, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, Harlan Crow is literally a small step away from being a James Bond villain. There was a James Bond villain who, one of his villain quirks, he was an arms dealer. He had statues of famous like dictators and like military generals in his house. The thing that Harlan Crow has not done yet, but there's still time, he's not dead yet, is the fact that he could like put his face on these like generals. So if he has like the Stalin statue with Harlan Crow's face, then he would be a literal Bond villain.
Now, I am going to defend Harlan Crow here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Is it possible, and look, it's possible, that Harlan Crow did not mean to own a signed copy of Mein Kampf, but instead he was trying to just get the book that Hitler signed that Indiana Jones had in his hand?
the Grail diary.
Right, it's just the Grail diary. Like, maybe he was just trying to get the Grail so that he could then live forever.
And I think my favorite.
I mean, I would appreciate if you would address my theory, Brad, as if it is totally serious.
I mean, look, maybe who's to say that Denholm Elliott, or that not Denholm Elliott, but Julian Glover's character in Last Crusade was based on Harlan Crow? I don't know. It could very well be, for all we know.
I don't know that.
For all we know.
I don't know.
My favorite thing about Harlan Crow is that he is just a shining example of a right-wing influencer, in that he's a nepotism baby who inherited all his money from his daddy, who actually did stuff.
Right.
And the dude has just basically been a dilettante and has gotten influential friends that he can then peddle influence with, despite not actually contributing anything to society.
Yeah, dude, wow.
And somehow this guy is a fucking, like a big dude in Republican donor politics, because he's got a shitload of money. Yeah. And because he has money, he's allowed to have opinions, and his opinions are allowed to be heard, because that's all Republicans give a flying fuck about. Also, he has a fucking resort house in the Adirondacks that's a replica of fucking Hagrid's house from Harry Potter, which is weird to me. You didn't know that?
Come on, man. I like that series, man. Don't do that. Well, you know what? I hate to say it because it's really cheesy, but I think it just makes sense. Title of the show: You're a Nazi now, Harry.
You're a Nazi now, Harlan.
Yeah, like, God damn it. That's such a hacky joke, but come on, it's right there.
Yeah.
So here's two things. I slightly buried the lead there. Among his figures in the Garden of Evil are Joseph Stalin.
Does he call it that, or did the article call it that? Is it in quotes?
No, it's in quotes. I don't know. So it is equally possible that he's like, yeah, it's the Garden of Evil. Well, let's see who's in there. Let's see which statues are there, Brad. Let's see if that name fits. As I mentioned, Joseph Stalin, Vladimir Lenin, Romanian dictator Nicolae Ceausescu, Yugoslav dictator Joseph Broz Tito. I don't know anything about this Yugoslav dictator, but I definitely know Nicolae Ceausescu, and I definitely know Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin. Yeah, I'm going Garden of Evil. Totally fine.
So really, calling him a Nazi might be unfair. He may just be a run of the mill fascist. Then maybe that's all.
Yeah.
Like
exactly,
he just fucking loves fascism.
Yeah. Again, he's not a Nazi.
Yeah.
He's worse.
Yeah, I like Jews. I just want to have complete fucking control over people. Like that's my
what's the big deal? All right.
Yeah.
Who cares? And maybe, I don't know, maybe kill 50 million of my own people. Big deal. What are you guys getting all up in arms about?
I hate to do this because we do it every fucking time, but it feels necessary. Republicans are like, what's the big deal? Like, why is this such a big problem? But like Harlan Crow has all this stuff in there. Like all this stuff. Just imagine if someone took a trip to, I don't know, let me just pick a name out of thin air, George Soros's house. and George Soros had a fucking garden full of, of Stalin statues and Lenin statues and Genghis Khan statues and what have you, Napoleon statues. Like I would imagine, and I have to imagine because fair and balanced is what the right-wing media does, that they would have a completely measured and tepid and normal response
100%.
to that news being out there.
Yeah, it is amazing. I will say this article, and it really kind of pushed me over the line. Like I'm a bad liberal, right? Because I believe that I don't give a shit if somebody works, they start a business, and they make $1 billion. They become a billionaire. I know people are like, it's cool to say like there should be no billionaires, right? Bernie says it, people will say it all the time. Whatever. I actually don't agree with that. I think if you earn the money, you earn the money, as long as it's legal. I also think they should be taxed to the fucking hilt. So I think it kind of stops that from happening anyway. I think it should be a 90% tax at the top bracket. So me saying that is really kind of a cop-out because if I had my druthers, they would never become billionaires. But I don't think there should be a cap on it, right?
You don't have a fundamental opposition to billionaires existing.
Right. Some people have a fundamental opposition to it, which to me sounds a little silly. I'm like, just tax the shit out of them, dude. You don't have to worry about it. Just have systems in place, right? I believe in systems. I don't believe in. I just don't want it. That's not a good argument, right? So I'm a bad liberal in that regard. However, I did hear one of the best arguments for changing my mind on why there shouldn't be billionaires, right? Because the arguments have always been they're exploiting people.
Wasn't Harlan Crow as Nazi memorabilia?
I was like, this guy's got too much fucking money. He's got statues? Who has a statue of Nicolae Ceausescu? That's just crazy. That's like way too recent history. He's like, no, I need that guy. Like, why? No, but I heard Sam Cedar, who I respect greatly. I think he is one of the last good, like professional liberal, like commentators. I really do. The rest of them have been horseshoeing their way to the right, a little too hard for my taste. But Sam Cedar, I think, is very, very good and an honest person. And he was on a show, sitting across from like a multimillionaire, and he was just like, yeah. Like, I think you guys are basically pieces of shit, and I don't agree with your entire whole thing, your whole brand. And he said, yeah, I don't think billionaires should exist. And he didn't use the shitty argument that I see most people make. He was like, listen, in order for a democracy to work, people have to have an equal voice. And the simple existence of someone with that much money disallows that person to have an equal voice in society as a guy who's basically like, I don't know, a garbage man, right? Like, you cannot compete because the amount of money they simply have in their possession makes them quite literally worth more politically. So they have an outsized amount of power on the system. Now, that to me is a compelling argument. They shouldn't be able to like make that amount of money because it's exploiting workers. Well, dude, I pay you. You work here. Like, I don't know. Like, to me, it's on its face, it's not a very good argument. But even as hearing that, and I think it's a very convincing argument, I still disagree with it ultimately because I'm like, take money out of politics, and again, you don't have
right. Like you can legislate their influence in.
Yeah, you can just destroy it, right?
Yeah.
So, but as the system stands right now, that to me is the best argument, is that they, in fact, have an outsized amount of power just simply by existing. Just simply by existing. Because they can put their thumb on the scale anytime they want. And for good or bad, right? You could be like, Donald Trump is evil. Here, I'm worth $135 billion. Here's $1 billion to the Democratic Party. Beat this guy.
Yeah.
You could do that, right? Like you could, right? And if you got $130 billion, what's $1 billion to you? It's nothing to you.
And here's the thing, like, I'm sure that there's no records or that you know what? I'm even going to go out on a limb and say Harlan Crow has never gone to Clarence Thomas and been like, hey, can you rule this way for me on this thing? Or can you do this way for me? Anything. But just the fact that that relationship exists and just the fact that Clarence Thomas benefits from it is going to cloud his thinking and is going to cloud his judgment in cases where maybe Harlan Crow's not directly affected, but people like him could be. Clarence Thomas ruled on the Citizens United decision. Now, Clarence Thomas probably believes that money in politics should be unfettered, but you can make the argument that because his fucking best friend that takes him on trips around the fucking world and has him over at his place and, flies him on his private jet and, takes him out on his yacht all the time, would have a bearing on him ruling in that case, because if he rules in favor of, no money in politics, that's harming a personal relationship that he has. So it doesn't have to be Harlan Crow going out there being like, oh, like, you better kill this Citizens United thing. Just the fact that relationship exists. And we're just supposed to trust that Clarence Thomas can separate his personal relationships and his personal feelings from interpreting the law. And I think we found that, especially with this specific crop of right-wing Supreme Court justices, they can't disentangle their political leanings and their feelings about issues from interpreting the law. Right.
And look, if you want to say that's definitely would also be a problem on the left, I agree with you. I don't want George Soros flying, Elaine Kagan around either on fucking private jets. That's not acceptable. So it's not even a liberal versus conservative thing. It's a corruption thing. It's just not acceptable behavior. Now let's just briefly touch on the most obvious part of this. Nothing's going to happen.
Nope. Because the mechanism that exists to discipline Clarence Thomas, I mean, there really is there's not like an ethics board for the Supreme Court. And if this was truly, a problem, then you could impeach him. But Republicans control the House. You're never going to get, 50% vote to impeach Clarence Thomas. And if you impeached him, you don't have 2/3 vote in the Senate to drum him out. So like you said, nothing will happen. He will be admonished in the press, and we'll all continue knowing the score and knowing the deal with Clarence Thomas, but he'll still get to sit there. He'll still get to make shitty rulings on cases that are presented before him. And he'll be there until either he decides he wants to leave, which is probably the next time we get a Republican president. He'll probably try to hang on until then, I would almost guarantee, or until he fucking dies, which, whichever comes first.
Never can tell. Speaking of getting old, Brad, you want to take this story? You hate old people.
Apps. I do. Well documented on this show that I am a noted ageist when it comes to politicians. So Dianne Feinstein, legendary politiciien, especially in California, former mayor of San Francisco. She's been in the Senate for a very long time at this point. Dianne Feinstein is also 89 years old right now.
Young. 89 years young.
Nope, I'm going to go with 89 years ageist.
You fucking ageist piece of shit. I guess next you'll tell her she can't drive, Brad. She should be driving.
So, Dianne Feinstein fell ill with shingles in early March, which is not her fault. You can't, shit happens. Can't help that. But here's the problem. Is that since March 7th, when she left D.C. to be treated for her shingles condition, she's missed 58 Senate votes, meaning that she's missed literally 3/4 of the votes that have happened in the Senate so far. Another problem is that she's a member of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate. The Judiciary Committee is responsible for getting through the judicial nominees of President Biden. And without her being in the committee, it is a 12-12 split between Democrats and Republicans are hard obstructing any nominees that come up because, of course, they are, because what the fuck else would they do? So,
I mean, I would do that if I were them too.
Of course. So because Dianne Feinstein is out, basically, judicial nominees are slowing to a crawl, essentially. And basically, the call has come for Dianne Feinstein probably needs to go. Because I don't know if you know this, Jay, but generally, the health prognosis for 89-year-olds doesn't improve as time goes along. Things end up getting worse.
Again, now, I refuse to stand with you, Brad, as you besmirch the fine octogenarian audience that we have.
Look, it is okay. It is okay to be wrong. Now, Dianne Feinstein has she's in the last leg of her term. She has not yet announced whether or not
which term. Her life term or in Congress in general?
Like little column A, little column B. Jeez. She has not yet announced whether or not she's going to seek re-election at the ripe young age of 89.
Yo, come on, lady. Just
now, fortunately, a couple Democratic politicians from California, notably Barbara Lee and Adam Schiff, and I think Katie Porter has too, have all declared that they're going to seek.
Porter was
they're going to run. Oh, you're right. That they're going to seek the nomination to replace her in the Senate. So I'd have to imagine that she's probably not going to be returning back to Congress after her term ends at the end of 2024. It would be really cool, though, if Dianne Feinstein decided to leave. I don't know, like 2 months ago would have been the best time for her to leave. Yesterday would be the next best time for her to have left, and then today would be the next best time for her to have left, and every day therefore until she leaves. And here's the shit that drives me up the fucking wall. So they're going out and they're talking, like, they're, of course, like, since this is the topic of the day, they're talking to other Democratic senators about, hey, do you think Dianne Feinstein should resign? Which, first of all, is a stupid question for reporters to ask. I understand that they have to ask the question, but to expect like one of their colleagues to trash them publicly through the media is insane. Never going to happen. Like they asked Sheldon Whitehouse, and while he didn't say no, like he was like she certainly doesn't need me weighing in on her political future and this, that, or the other thing. Like that's what he said essentially. I really hope that those people behind closed doors are having that conversation with her staff at the very least, to be like, hey, can you maybe like get her to not be here anymore, perhaps? Or better yet, and I understand you don't want to embarrass someone on their way out the door. Chuck Schumer could just remove her from the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't do that and just.
Yeah, he'd be like, look, she's not here. I don't want to pull her off the committee, but look, we need someone that can actually cast votes right now. And Like that's what we're doing.
Yo, you're 100 years old. You're right. 1,000 years old. It's okay. Fine. You want to stay in Congress to the end of 2024. I think it's ridiculous, but whatever. But you got to get off the Judiciary Committee so that like work can get done. It shouldn't be held up. Democracy should not be held up because you are just so obstinate about retiring. It's ridiculous.
Selfish. You're selfish about it. You are literally putting yourself ahead of your constituents, ahead of the country, ahead of your party. Like that's what you're literally doing. You are putting yourself before all these people. Politics, like it's this weird conundrum that politics is, because it really needs to be one of the most selfless like positions that kind of exist in as a job. Right. Yet it's dominated by the most egotistical people in the entire world. I would love for Dianne Feinstein, if she can form a coherent thought at this point, because there's a lot of people that have said over the last couple of years that her fucking mental faculties seem to be escaping her a little bit.
Look, never forget that there was a doctor who says that they absolutely have prescribed anti-dementia medicine to someone in Congress.
Yeah. But I would love for her I would love for her to explain to me how her sitting at home in San Francisco and not in DC to take votes and letting these judicial nominees get held up and stymied and all that stuff, how that is better serving the country than her stepping down from her seats and giving it up and letting someone else fill it, sit out the rest of the term for the next 2 years. Like that's literally all you're asking us to do.
Is your home life that bad at 89? Why do you want to be in DC? Just stay home, man. Just stay home. Yeah. You're good. Look, again, legendary politician. It's fine. Don't let your
you're ruining your own legacy.
You're right. Like don't
ruining
let
your
own legacy get destroyed in the end. Right? Like, look, we can all learn from George Costanza. When you hit a joke at the high point, you just leave. Like, look, you did it. Just leave. It's okay. Just get the fuck out of it.
Like again, like all I remember about Orin Hatch, dude that was in the Senate for fucking ever, is that he fucking caped to Donald Trump on his way out the door and fucking voted against running him in office, and despite the fact that he was a very staunch anti-Trump dude when that dude was still running for president. That's the last thing I remember. Dude was in the Senate for fucking 40 years, 50 years, however long Orin Hatch was in the Senate. And all I remember is that, like, oh, dude, you fucking burned your legacy up by fucking caping for this man. What the fuck? Don't go out like this. Yeah. Like, if you're Dianne Feinstein, I don't understand why you want to go out like this. It doesn't make sense.
Orin Hatch was supposed to fulfill the white horse theory, which was a Mormon man becoming president through some fucking nonsense rigmarole. But it would have been awesome. Not really.
Again, if there was one thing that I could impart on this world, and I realize that I'm a massive fucking hypocrite for saying this, because if Joe Biden runs again for president in 2024, I will 1000% go out and vote for him, no problem. So I am inserting my foot directly into my mouth. But if I could do anything, and I mean anything in this world, if I could snap my fingers and make it so, I would put a constitutional amendment in place that nobody above the age of 80 can serve in federal government. That's what I would do.
80
like, you turn 80, you're gone. Yes.
Yeah, I disagree.
And again, I feel like I'm compromising by saying 80. If it was up to me, I would say 72.
Okay. Because like that's what I'm saying. I disagree. Like that number's way too high. Yeah, that number's way too high. Are you kidding me? No. 70. You know what? 65. Let's start. Well, you know what it is? You know what? I'll just tie it to this. Whatever the retirement age.
Oh, there you go. No. Then you're incentivizing them to fucking just.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, they got people working
don't do that. Trust me, they will do anything they can to cling to whatever semblance of power, even if it fucks over hundreds of millions of Americans.
The retirement age is 100 years old. Like Jesus Christ. But yeah, I think it should be much closer to retirement age.
Yes,
if you're telling 100%. they have to retire at, was it 68 now or something like that, 67, then that should be where you are.
And again, if you think I'm wrong, about this, if you're listening out there and be like, that's ridiculous, like you're being ageist, whatever. Again, my recommendation to you would to literally queue up on C-SPAN any of the recent hearings over the past couple years when they have someone from a Silicon Valley tech company in front of Congress and listen to the questions that some of those fucking Congress people ask. Dude, at the TikTok hearing, there was literally a fucking congressman asking the TikTok CEO, "Does the TikTok app access your Wi-Fi?" And the fucking TikTok CEO, like, he didn't know what the fuck to say because he just like, yeah, I mean, like, if your phone's connected to Wi-Fi, then yeah, like the TikTok app is connected to Wi-Fi because, but this dude was like incredulous, like, I can't believe TikTok accesses your Wi-Fi. But like, you're giving it access to your Wi-Fi because that's how phones work.
He was like, "God damn
what
it,
the fuck are you like? What the fuck is wrong?
Chinese are geniuses. How did they get into our Wi-Fi?" Oh god.
Yeah, like if you are a politician and you can't prevent yourself from looking like an ass in a fucking tech hearing, you gotta go.
Yeah, you gotta go.
You gotta go. Sorry, you gotta
I have
go.
a question about this TikTok. Will it be able to open a PDF document for me? Sure, yes. Yes.
My favorite one of the politicians, I don't remember who it was a Republican, of course, was basically like trying to figure out like how the algorithm worked. And he's just like, well, like the algorithm must not work because it feeds me a ton of trans content and a ton of like LGBTQ content, and like, so like your algorithm's broken. And it's like, actually, it's probably working exactly as it's supposed to. way to fucking
out yourself there,
out yourself. But good job.
All I keep seeing is hot trans chicks. What is the deal with this? Well, sir, you keep searching for it. And you keep clicking that heart button.
Yeah.
That's fucking hilarious. How dare you? Your algorithm's broken. No, buddy, I think you're you know what? Maybe your marriage is broken. I don't know. Next up, both Tennessee Democrats reinstated to their House seats. Justin Pearson was reinstated by the Shelby County Board 7-0 on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And previously,
Justin Jones,
the other Justin, was got a unanimous vote from his county board as well. They are both there temporarily until there is an election, but they are back in their seats. Justin Jones, Justin Jones, he didn't even miss a day of work. Like, no, they fired him on a Friday, and he was back on Monday.
Literally back the next day. Yep.
What's up, motherfucker? Like,
it is astonishing how
stupid the Republican Party,
how fast this boomeranged on them, and how predictable it was.
Oh yeah.
And again, to follow up my point earlier about don't show your ass or you're going to get caught out. While Justin Jones is back and while Justin Pearson is back, someone did some digging on Cameron Sexton, the Speaker of the Tennessee House, and found out that he actually lives about 300 miles from the district that he represents.
Oh.
Whoops. Uh-oh.
Should that get him kicked out? Right? Because that's more than just a decorum issue.
Yeah. So I mean, sure seems to me. There's also one of the other Republican representatives who it was learned over this past weekend because reporters dug it up. While he was a small town doctor, he was prescribing opioids for a woman that he was in a relationship with, who was also his second cousin.
A little Rudy Giuliani action. I like that. I'm sorry, Rudy Giuliani. That was his first cousin he married.
Yeah.
Classic. Right. But
so
you guys are worried about LGBTQ folks. Okay.
So just to recap, Republicans martyred these two guys over some bullshit. Made themselves look incredibly outwardly, nakedly racist in the process by not voting out the white woman who also joined in on these protests as well. Yes. And then these people came right back. So you've martyred them. You've made them more powerful. You gave them a national platform. You pissed off all the fucking young voters in your state that you would fucking do this. They're back in Congress anyway, or they're back in the House anyway. They're probably going to win re-election for their seats, and you look like assholes, and now your members are getting the shit, rose to the sunlight against you. Bravo, Tennessee Republicans. Just a stellar fucking job. And to what end? To what end? To own the libs for a weekend? Is it like that's literally all you accomplished?
Yep.
Because again, you have a supermajority in the House. You could have just fucking let that shit slide, kept your powder dry, and just still gotten the votes that you wanted to anyway, and still passed through whatever legislation you want. Now you've made a fucking issue. It's not
like there was any threat for gun control to pass. None. Oh, the people are in the House and they're yelling about gun control. You guys don't give a shit.
Now their Republican governor is out here being like, I don't know, maybe we should get some gun control guys. like I'm just saying, like, this is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
I'm sure he's real liberal, right? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, you've made a very grave mistake. You mentioned this last week. You are galvanizing, you are radicalizing young people under 30 against you. You're not radicalizing them for your cause. You're radicalizing them against you. And they're not going to forget. Like,
because you laid it bare. You laid it bare. Challenge us, and we will destroy you. Like that. That's the message that you're sending. And I don't know about you, but especially young people in this country, they hear that and them's fighting words. Challenge accepted.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's
all right, man. Like, you think you're gonna win this? You think you're gonna win this shit?
Yeah.
All right. Look.
To quote Bruce Wayne. Yeah. To quote Bruce Wayne, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Yeah. Like, dude, that video of Justin Jones returning to the House with like a full crowd cheering him on.
Fist in the air.
Yeah. Power to the people, man. Like, you done fucked up, man. You done fucked up. And here's the thing.
And for nothing.
You won nothing.
You gained nothing.
Right. I think Republicans, and we could often say this about Democrats, but that tide is turning about them. Republicans have now forgotten who they're fighting. And what I mean by that is Democrats always got in trouble, rightfully so, because they were always fighting Republicans on, they had also, like, they kind of lost the thread on that, right? Like, they were fighting Republicans from the 1970s and the 1980s. Oh, well, or 60s. Like, oh, if we just have a beer with Tip O'Neill, it'll all fucking work out, right? Like, they were still fighting those kind of battles, right? We're gonna argue the facts, and the facts will prevail, and we'll sit down, we'll have 3 martini lunch, and everything will be okay, right? And that's why they kept getting clobbered. But you have to remember, Justin Jones and Justin Pearson and Gloria Johnson as well, they're not from that era. Well, Gloria Johnson is. She's like 60. But like Justin, the two Justins are not from that era. They're not from the Tip O'Neill era. They don't give a shit about that. They're 27 and 28. They're younger than us. So the only politicians they've ever truly seen is like the Bush administration forward. So it's Bush, Trump, and Obama, and now Biden are the only 4 people they've really paid attention to in politics as far as the national stage. What shape do you think that puts young people in? It puts them in a completely never trust Republicans position. They know not to trust them. Their word means nothing. And the only way you beat them is by just kicking the shit out of them and never letting your foot up. Like, and I don't mean that literally before people, oh, it's an insurrection. Like, no, I mean quite literally, from a political perspective, you can never let them up. You knock them down and you kick them down. And old Democrats are not used to that. Dianne Feinstein's not used to that. So that's why they fight.
And not only that, but they're savvier than these Republicans are.
They're far savvier.
The thing that I remember from the hearing that they had, and one of the clips that went viral, is the Republican leader in the House talking to Justin Pearson, and he was using like he was using that tone that I'm shocked that he didn't say like boy, like
oh yeah, it was peppered in whether you heard it or not.
Yeah, like because it was completely condescending. Like you're there because you broke the rules, and now you're going to pay the price, and like kind of like admonishing him, and Pearson didn't get upset. He didn't get pissed off. He didn't get mad. All he says, "You guys all saw that, right? Like, can you believe this dude is talking to me that way? Like treating a colleague that way? Like treating a fellow congressperson, like talking down to me that way? Like none of you would want to be talked to like that." But this is and like, dude, you fucking cut his knees out from under him when you do that. Because what's he gonna say? What's he gonna do?
Right. Because the old school mentality would have been to get very upset, to like yell about it, or to not say anything, right? And just be like, and then go to TV and be like, well, that was just unacceptable. No, you take what he did in that moment was he took it and he said, it's not about me. Would you want to be treated like that? And he put every single person who heard him, who was in earshot, and go, I don't like that shit. That's fucked up. And every person of color knows what that sounds like. They know what that tone is. And more importantly, young people know what it's like too. Because young people, whether you're a person of color or not, you know what it's like to have a condescending older person talk down to you when you know more than them, or you know that you're right. So even if they don't take it from a racial perspective, which is how it was presented, really, let's be honest, you know what that's like. And nothing pisses young people off more than being told what to do when they think that they're right. Right? They have parents. That's like the whole conflict with your parents, right? So this is a political issue. And those Republicans are older. So it becomes an us versus them thing. Right? From a racial perspective, from a liberal versus conservative perspective, Democrat versus Republican perspective, and from a young to old perspective. You fucked up. You didn't fucked up because now you have an entire generation who just watched what you did in Tennessee, and that's not even a national story. That's a local story.
But it became a national story because it was so egregious. And the irony about it is, you might see some change in Tennessee. Like you might see some of those purple districts flip blue next election, but Republicans are still going to have a firm grip on the Tennessee legislature. You're not going to dismantle that. But what about all these other states who are seeing this shit going on? And again, you're radicalizing, you're galvanizing people, you're fucking lighting people up to go out there and fucking vote. And you're going to probably have fucking Trump on the ballot too, to boot on top of that. That's a recipe for disaster.
I really think they're going to end up getting routed again in 2024. I really do. I think they're going to get routed again. Let alone like the presidency. I think they're just going to get routed. And I think you're going to see more and more of these type of power grabs on the local level, and you're going to see more and more heavy-handed responses from Democrats, young Democrats, ready to go to war. Like, you want to go? Let's fucking go, baby. Like you said, these guys are way savvier, man. They're way savvier. And this is like, remember when AOC came in and they were like, she was literally giving classes to other congressmen and women, teaching them how to be savvier social media wise and like to clap back quickly and stuff like that, because that is the new era. Like, you may not like AOC, but she's damn good at what she does. And her generation in Congress on the national level, or Pearson and Jones on this local level in Tennessee, that is the future of the Democratic Party, and it should scare the shit out of Republicans. It should.
Yep.
So, best of luck. I can't wait to see how it turns out. I can't wait. You dumb idiots. Next up, this jumps right off of that same story. Republicans expel a Republican from the Arizona legislature. They didn't need any Democrats at all. Former state representative Liz Harris was expelled from the Arizona House for disorderly behavior. Now, that sounds like a decorum issue, right? I was like, what's happening? Well, I think Arizona is real sick and tired of this whole election fraud bullshit. So what happened is the House made a vote with 46 representatives voting yes and 13 voting no. A 2/3 majority is needed to expel representatives, so they got it. What happened is she brought in in February, they had public hearings in front of lawmakers. Recently they had these public hearings where they were talking about like how to avoid any possible like bad election issues and things like that coming up and everything else. Well, this woman, her name is Jacqueline Breger, was invited by the now expelled Liz Harris. Breger in February spoke at a public hearing in front of lawmakers when she, without evidence, accused numerous Republican and Democratic public officials of laundering money for the Sonora drug cartel through the use of fraudulent mortgage documents. She also accused the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints of being, quote, integral in laundering activities. So she came, when she was brought in by Liz Harris, she was like, oh, this election stuff is all a fraud and it's all bullshit and we shouldn't believe it. And they were like, oh, that's interesting. Get the fuck out of here. And by the way, Liz, you also get the fuck out of here. So her making all these bullshit voter fraud claims and everything else was enough to get the person who brought her in booted, because they're like, you're not serious. This is like disorderly nonsense. You're just trying to like gum up the works with a bunch of bullshit. We're done. And keep in mind, they got 46 votes on that. Look, Arizona is officially a purple state. It is.
And I'm quite honestly shocked that Republicans were able to help govern themselves a little bit. But again,
that never happens.
That tells me that there's enough Republicans that are actually able to fucking see how the sun is shining and be like, holy shit, like we just ran a bunch of fucking election denying wackos in all of our state elections this past year and got the shit kicked out of us.
That is correct.
We need to stop fucking platforming this stuff. Now, if Republicans around the country were smart, they would make sure that guys like Donald Trump, guys like, I guess not Ron DeSantis, because Ron DeSantis isn't like an election denier dude, but like basically all these like fucking election conspiracy idiots didn't end up anywhere near a ballot. Of course, they are not that smart, and we will have plenty of election denying assholes on Republican ballots all over the country. But I guess maybe not in Arizona, where it looks like they're going to actually try to fight for these seats with actual sane, normal Republican candidates. Yep. Who'd have thought?
Here you go. Arizona Republican leaders spoke out against the Breger incident in the days following, with House Speaker Ben Toma and Senate President Warren Peterson pinning the blame for the presentation on Harris. Quote, what should have been a joint hearing to examine common sense election reforms devolved into disgraceful fringe theory. That was Toma who said that. Quote, I'm not alone in believing that it was irresponsible and bad judgment for Ms. Harris to invite a person to present unsubstantiated and defamatory allegations in a legislative forum. They are very done. They're done. So best of luck, because now you can't even get your conspiracy theory nutbags in local government. That shit's unacceptable. And they'll boot your ass for it. Not that they censured her or anything like that or said, hey, this is unacceptable. They straight up booted her. Like,
yeah, get the entire fuck out.
Yeah. So, good. Governments should police themselves, and parties themselves should do that. And the Republican Party has a real shitty track record for calling out their own shenanigans. So that's good.
Okay, that's the end of the free portion for this week's episode of Look Forward. Make sure you go to lookforwardshow.com/premium. Sign up for premium content. It's only $5 a month or $50 for the full year.